everyone and welcome to my channel. I hope that you are all good. In today's video we're going to be doing an autumn ombre acrylic nail, so I really hope you all enjoy watching. Now I have left this entire video in real time because I did have a request for some more real-time videos, so I thought when I do these simple one nail designs I will try and leave those in real time so you can kind of see how slow or how quick I work, and it just shows everything in a little bit more detail. So I really hope you all enjoy watching. So for today's video, I'm going to be using all CJP acrylic. So this gorgeous brown is called Blushed Bronze, and it's a beautiful autumnal colour. As you can see, it's a bit like a chestnut brown, but it has a little bit of a shimmer to it. So it's a really pretty. Now I'm going to start off by doing my acrylic ombre. So I've placed that bead of acrylic down, blended out the back of it, and then I'm just stretching it out as best as I can to pull it down towards the free edge. Now I want to make sure there's a thin to medium layer of the coloured acrylic down. It doesn't matter if it doesn't reach the tip of the nail because you can just come in with another small bead. I'm then placing my next bead of acrylic down right at the very free edge of the nail, and I always leave my bead a second or two just to make it the right consistency to work with before I start pulling or pressing it into place. Then I'm just blending this colour back, and I did blend it back a little bit too much. It was a little bit too much of a wet bead, so I'm just moving that acrylic around until I'm happy with how it's all placed and how it's all laying. I'm trying to keep my application as neat as possible because then there's going to be a minimal finish filing to do at the end. So as you can see, I'm just using my brush to tap in the very side walls just to make sure there's no acrylic overhanging. The same goes at the free edge. So I'm trying to make sure that application is clean as possible. Now I did leave this for around a minute to set before coming in with my core colour. So here I'm using a CJP Fantasy. So when I'm doing an ombre with colours that I find a little bit tricky, like these two, because the blush bronze is quite dark and Fantasy is quite light but pigmented, I start off with a really small bead of acrylic right at that blend area. So I've placed this small bead down, I'm blending it back into what would be the natural nail plate or your clear base, and then I'm just gently feathering it down over the blushed bronze to start creating that fade. I like to start off with a small bead first of all when I know it's colours that I'm going to find tricky, just because this way I feel like I've got more control over the product and I can work on that blend a little bit more. If I put a big bead down, I personally would struggle with that a little bit, so it's just what I found works easier for me. If it's an ombre where I've had lots of practice with those colours, or they're two colours that blend easier, then I might work slightly different with larger beads and things like that. Now I'm coming in with my cuticle bead, so I'm placing this down just away from the cuticle, tilting the finger downwards, and then I'm using the very tip of my brush to push this up as close to the cuticle as possible. You want to try and get it nice and flush to the natural nail and as close to that cuticle area without touching any of the cuticle or skin. Then I'm blending the top of this bead of acrylic down, so I'm leaving the bulk of it where I've placed it, and then I'm just blending the top of it down over that previous bead of acrylic. We've already created most of our blend, so I don't need to stress too much about creating a blend with this bead of acrylic. I'm more just fading it out and then seeing how my ombre looks. And I'm doing this using really light feathery strokes so that I don't pull too much of the acrylic down the nail. Now here I felt as though the edge of the nail just looked a little bit uneven where the blend was. So I've come in with a really small bead of acrylic and I'm just repeating the same process as before. It did come a little bit further down the blushed bronze than the previous beads of acrylic. So I'm just wiping off some of that excess and then blending it all out as best as I can. And then I'm just running over the nail with my wet brush, just cleaning up any areas where I've taken the Fantasy down a little bit too far. Now I did feel as though this blend still looked quite harsh or I just wasn't 100% happy with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a small bead of the blushed bronze, place that down at the tip of the nail. This is going to help cover any of the fantasy that we've pulled too far down the nail. And then I'm just going to blend that back, and it's going to really help soften that ombre blend. And also, because the blush bronze has a bit of a shimmer in it, that little bit of shimmer going over the fantasy is going to add a really nice effect as well. And this is why as well, when I'm doing my ombres, I start off quite thin. So that if I do need to come in with any more acrylic of either of the colours, I'm able to do that without creating a too bulky nail. Any areas like this where you've taken the colour too far down, you can just clean up using your wet brush. So now I want to add some of these cute autumn leaves on to the nail. So I've picked them up using my wet brush and I'm just pressing them down into the acrylic. It wasn't quite tacky enough to press these down. I'm working with the CJP, the 1 monomer, which does set quite quickly. Usually I would work a little bit faster so that I could press these down into the acrylic and then they'd hold in place. But because I was faffing around with that ombre, everything has started setting. So I'm just placing them down on the nail where I want them to be. And then I'm going to pick up a small, teeny tiny wet bead of clear acrylic and just wash that around those leaves. This will then hold them in place and then they will set on the nail ready for us to come in and encapsulate. Sometimes if you just place your glitter or your leaves down on the nail and then they've not got no acrylic holding them in place, when it comes to encapsulating, you place your clear bead down and then it moves whatever you've put on the nail around. I didn't want that to happen as I'd placed those leaves exactly where I wanted them to be. So just adding this thin, tiny bead of clear acrylic will just hold those in place. Then I did wait a few moments for that to set enough just to hold them where they are, and we're then going to come in and encapsulate. So I'm using the CJP crystal glass. I've picked up a medium-sized bead of acrylic and I'm placing it down just behind that apex area. Now I've already built up a lot of my cuticle and apex using the CJP Fantasy, which is a core colour, so I don't need to take my clear encapsulation layer all the way down to the cuticle area because there is enough product there. I'm mainly encapsulating this now to encapsulate those glitters, encapsulate the blend, and just to build up more thickness and strength from the center and the middle part of the nail downwards, if that makes sense. So I don't basically need a huge thick encapsulation layer because the CJP Fantasy and Blush Bronze are both core colours, but I just haven't used them thick enough because we've put artwork over the top. Just blending this bead of clear acrylic down. You don't want to end up with a too thick or bulky nail. As long as you've got your apex in place, you want your tip of your nail to be quite thin. I did do all of the filing and buffing off camera, so here I'm just coming in with some acetone and cleansing the nail, making sure it's nice and clean before we come in and do our stamping. So I'm going to be using this gorgeous stamping plate. This is one of my favourites because it's got lots of pretty floral and intricate designs on it. So I'm going to be using this with my Born Pretty stamping polish. So as you can see, I've placed a generous amount of stamping polish over the image that I've chose to use, scraped off the excess, and then picked up this beautiful little leaf pattern. Cleaned off the excess image that I don't want with my lint-free pad, and then I'm just going to press this down onto the nail. So I'm using the clear jelly stamper. This one's the Big Bling and I absolutely love it. It's got to be my favourite stamper because it's just so easy to use. I just love this stamper because I find that it works on every plate I own, no matter what brand it is, every stamping polish I use, no matter what brand they are. It's just a really, really good quality of fab stamper. So I'm going to do the same again and add some more of those leaves down near the cuticle area. And another thing I love about this stamper is it's the Big Bling, so it's quite large. So it's great if you're wanting to do a full nail of stamping, so you're picking up larger images, but it's still really good on these small, intricate designs as well. So I'm just lining that up and then I'm going to press down. I do a little wriggle from side to side and then gently peel off, and as you can see it has fully transferred. It's a really pretty design. I didn't want nothing too over the top on top of the nail because I still wanted you to see the leaves and the ombre underneath. So we're now ready to come in and top coat. So I'm using the CJP tack free top gloss, and I'm just going to put a really nice even thin layer of this over the entire nail, and it's going to bring back all that gorgeous shininess from those glitters, and it's going to really make that stamping pop. Now sometimes I do find with this particular top coat it can separate a little bit over stamping. So I do just wipe over it a few times and then quickly get it in the lamp to cure. My absolute favourite top coat for going over stamping are the Kiki London ones, but whenever I'm doing a video I try to use the full system, so that's why I opted for the CJP one here. So I've popped that in to cure, and this is the finished result. Really simple but really cute. So I hope you all enjoyed watching. I really do hope you're all keeping safe and well. Let me know in the comments how you all are. Thank you all so much for watching. Lots of love. Take care. Bye bye.